All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to unpack the incredible Nobel Prize-winning work of two economists, Paul Milgrom and Robert Wilson. And believe me, these guys totally changed the game when it comes to one of the oldest things we do, auctions.
So this is the official reason the Nobel Committee gave them the prize. Now, I know at first glance that phrase seems fine, kind of academic, right? But it is packed with decades of brilliant work that affects everything from how governments sell radio frequencies to how you might bid on something on eBay.
So that's our big question for this explainer. What does it really mean to make improvements to a theory and come up with inventions of new formats? To figure that out, we've got to deconstruct this thing, piece by piece.
First things first, let's start with the who. Because before we can even begin to understand the what, the improvements and inventions, we need to get to know the minds behind it all. You can't really appreciate a masterpiece without knowing a little something about its architects, right?
First up, we have Paul Milgrom. This guy is a brilliant theorist, just known for his amazing ability to dive deep into the messy, complex strategies that bidders have to deal with. He was a huge force in pushing the boundaries of what we thought auction theory could even do.
And his partner in this is Robert Wilson. And get this, Wilson was actually Milgrom's PhD advisor back at Stanford. Talk about a fruitful partnership. Wilson's early work laid the foundation for so much of what they'd later do together. They really are the perfect team to bridge that gap between super deep theory and, stuff that works in the real world.
Calling them architects is just so perfect, because this definition really gets to the heart of what they did. They didn't just add a few new ideas to economics. No, they basically redesigned the entire blueprint. They reinforced the old foundations and then built entirely new wings that nobody had even imagined were possible.
So, with our architects in mind, let's move on to the next part of that Nobel citation. Let's look at the two key actions that really define their work: improving and inventing.
Here we are again with that key phrase, but notice the emphasis this time. These two words, improvements and inventions, they are not the same thing, not at all. They represent two totally distinct, but connected, kinds of genius.
And this breaks down the difference perfectly. On one side, you've got improvements. Think of this like taking a classic car engine, that's our existing auction theory, and just making it run way, way better. For instance, Wilson's work helped bidders avoid something called the winner's curse. That's where you win, but you instantly realize you paid way too much. That's a huge improvement. It's like fine-tuning the engine so it doesn't backfire. But then, you have inventions. This isn't about tuning an old engine. This is about realizing the old engine will never fly, so you have to invent a jet engine from scratch. It's creating something totally new for a problem the old way just couldn't solve.
So let's zoom in on that second pillar, the inventions. This is where it gets really exciting, because this is the moment their work on paper just leaps into the real world and starts shaping billion-dollar industries. This is pure theory becoming practice.
So how on earth do you invent an auction? Well, this was kind of their playbook. First, they'd find a really complex, messy problem. The classic example is when the US government had to sell radio spectrum licenses to telecom companies. A simple auction just wouldn't work because a company might need a whole set of licenses to build a network. So second, they designed a totally new format, the simultaneous multi-round auction. This put all the licenses up for sale at once over many rounds, letting companies build the packages they actually needed. And the result? A way better outcome. The government made billions, and the licenses went to the companies that could actually use them best to build the mobile networks we all rely on today. I mean, that is economic architecture in action.
Okay, so we've looked at the architects, we've broken down their two huge contributions. Now let's put it all back together and just take in the full picture of their amazing legacy. So when we look at this sentence one last time, it's not just a bunch of words anymore, is it? You can actually see the two pillars holding it up, that careful, brilliant work of improvement and that bold, creative leap of invention.
And that combination, that powerful 1-2 punch of improving what exists and inventing what doesn't, that is what we now call modern auction theory. It's a field they didn't just contribute to, they literally built it.
Which leaves us with a final, really fascinating question to chew on. Milgrom and Wilson used rigorous, theory-based design to completely revolutionize auctions. So you have to wonder, what other complex systems out there, from financial markets to social media platforms, maybe even voting, are just waiting for their own architects to come along?